Welcome to the Corporate Detox podcast. I'm your host, Amanda McWhorter. I'm a corporate dropout, recovering people pleaser and perfectionist turned burnout recovery coach. If you are sick of the corporate roller coaster ride and ready to step into a life you love, this is the podcast for you. Welcome back to the Corporate Detox podcast. I'm your host, Amanda McWhorter, and I am so excited for today's episode. So I have been talking to today's guest, Barbara, for a few months now, honestly, even maybe longer than that. And the timing just wasn't right. So today is the day, and I am so happy to bring this episode to you. So let me tell you a little bit about Barbara. Not only is she amazing, but she's also a highly sought after leadership advisor and astrologer, and most recently, an Amazon best-selling author. Barbara helps women leaders and entrepreneurs become aligned to their purpose so they can make the greatest impact while living a fulfilled, successful life on their own terms. When Barbara heard the call to make a greater impact in the world, she left a 25-year corporate career to pursue the entrepreneurial path as a certified professional coach. Her unique approach empowers her clients to tap into their highest potential through their own personal astrology, transform into the women that they are destined to become, and co-create the life that they were meant to live. Coaching and mentoring comes natural to Barbara. With her sun sign in Cancer, she's very nurturing and intuitive. Her passion for lifelong learning and sharing it with others is definitely a characteristic of her moon placement in Sagittarius. Leading others through their transformational journeys is reflected in her Scorpio rising. Oh, I can't wait for you guys to listen, so let's jump in. Okay, Barbara.
Hello.
I know I say this for every person that comes on the podcast, but truly, you and I have been talking about doing this podcast together for a while, and you kept saying, let's wait till the right time. Let's wait till the right time. So I'm so glad that time is here. And I want you to go ahead and get us started with your corporate detox story.
Oh, okay, great. So I left a 25-year corporate career about 10 years ago. And I didn't know it then, but I know it now that it was very astrologically related. We can talk about that later. But I loved what I did for 25 years. I started out in IBM, so I was on the client side of my career in technology, doing sales and marketing. And then the second half of my career, I joined an agency. I worked for an agency on Madison Avenue here in New York. For those of you who are not familiar with Madison Avenue, I worked for a big advertising agency, and I worked with big clients, big name, big brand clients. I worked with IBM, I worked with Microsoft, I worked with Citibank, a lot of the big names. And I loved it. I loved it. My career was my main focus. But then, you get to a point where you feel like there's more, right? Like, how much more can you do in a career? For some people, yes. For me, I felt as if I needed to do more. I don't want to really say the world but for the world, like outside of a company, I felt like there was something that was calling me to do something bigger, to do something greater, but I didn't know what it was. And it's not like I had that dream and just left. There were things that were happening in my last job that were definitely pushing me out. And it took me a good year to really reconcile with the fact that it was the universe telling me it's time to go. Because I really did try. I was at a peak where I wasn't even learning and growing anymore. I was working for a smaller company in my last position for 6 years, doing a lot of what I was doing at the agency. So I did what most people don't do. I quit without a full-time job. And I also, and I'll weave in astrology here so that you guys can understand it. I have something in my birth chart that indicates optimism. Like I am very optimistic and I'm a risk taker. So it's no surprise, but I didn't know that then. So it's no surprise that I did what I did. I was earning an income. I was in network marketing. When I was in network marketing, I was introduced to coaching. I hired a coach. It was then that I decided that coaching or some form of coaching would be my path. And it took me, there goes the cat. It took me about 7 years to figure out what my true passion and purpose was in the coaching profession. And that is what I'm doing now, which is transformational work, primarily for women, but using astrology as a strategic asset to help them plan their life, plan their business, or plan their career.
I did not know that you left your corporate job without a plan.
Yeah.
I did too. And that, like, I feel like that's like a whole different, it's brave, right? It's bravery. It is like stepping into your true self and like really, truly honoring yourself at that time. So kudos to you.
It was. I had the support of my then husband. I'm now divorced. He was like, if you're not happy, you need to, and that's what I really tell people. I had a conversation with one of my clients yesterday, and I said, my journey is different from your journey, which is different from your journey. Everybody has a different journey. So I can't tell you what to do. Only you know, but you know when you're at that tipping point. That's what I call it. It's like the tipping point. I try, when working with clients, when I see their birth chart and I see what's going on in the sky, I try and head them off on the tipping point, because once you hit the tipping point, it becomes extremely stressful. But again, with my background in, like, I have really good placements in my chart that speak to optimism and bravery as well, that I had this inner knowing, and I had this inner faith that no matter what it was, I would figure it out. And I always say this, I will always be taken care of. I will always be taken care of.
I'm just feeling into that, because when I left, it was a true, like, I trusted God. I trusted the universe. I trusted what I knew was the right decision, because there were so many signs that I had just overlooked for a long time. And you get to a point in your life when you do start feeling that, right? That trust, knowing that you're provided for, knowing that things are going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then our mind sometimes takes us back to freak out mode. And I see this a lot with my clients, with friends. I go through it personally still to this day. I'm sure you do too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just such a good reminder for all of us.
And it really does come from our attachments to external fulfillment and external gratification. I mean, let's keep it real. We need money, right? We need money to live. But sometimes our attachment to it and our grip on it too tightly really clouds our judgment. So if we can release that attachment, and that knowing that I will be provided for, you will be provided for, it will come. It will come. And it's an evolution, because I did not leave and make the 6-figure salary that I was making right away when I left, right? So it's almost, you have to weigh, and this is the fulfillment piece, like you have to be fulfilled inside of yourself first in order to attract the external fulfillment. I'm not saying you'll get your 6 figures or your 10 figures or whatever it is that you aspire to, but you won't get it unless it comes from the inside.
Yeah. Yeah. So our paths crossed in a coaching container. And honestly, I was very much a wallflower. Like I wasn't super interactive, and that just tends to be how I am sometimes in group coaching situations. And I started following you on Facebook, and it was so intriguing just to see you step into this coaching space,
Mhm.
right? Of using someone's birth chart and their astrology. And I've always looked at astrology as something fun, right? I didn't really understand like actually how you can co-create with it. And
Mhm.
I've loved learning off of you in your membership. And you are just so giving of everything. So I'm so excited to dive into that, because this is definitely something that my listeners haven't probably don't even know about, quite honestly.
Mhm. Mhm. And so that's how my exposure was too. So I'm a Cancer sun, and most people affiliate astrology with their sun sign, right? So you probably affiliated it with your Scorpio sun.
Yeah.
And it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago that I was in a session with one of the members that was in that cohort, right? And she had an astrologer come on and talk to the group, and I was fascinated. This was actually in 2020. So when everybody's
Yeah.
lives were being turned upside down, mine, I describe that time in my life as my life was unraveling. It literally was unraveling, separate from 2020. And I was intrigued. I was like, you know what? Let me do this. And I didn't really know what to expect. But when I had that first reading, everything to me made sense. What made sense to me is why I was where I was, everything that happened in my life that led to that point. And I really was I was in a dark place, as dark as I could be with all the optimism in my chart. I was in the darkest place I could have been. And that gave me hope, and that gave me something to say, okay, this is the time in my life where I need to focus on. And at the time, it was my family. There were things going on at home. I had just, and I'm very transparent. I was going through mediation through a divorce. We were we were in lockdown during it. My ex, he was my husband at the time. He traveled a lot. He was home. The kids were having a hard. They were all home. It was just really difficult. It was difficult for me to run my business. It was difficult for me to stay positive. We were in that container together, thank goodness, because I had that community that
Yeah.
was helping me. That's what you and I talk all the time about, having a community and having a team is priceless. And so she said to me, her name's Susan, and her and I are really good friends now. We work a lot together. She said, you're going to get through this. Like, here's what it's going to look like for you over the next year. And then the following year, you're going to go through major transformation on all fronts. And you're going to come out with this, new and improved version of yourself. I'm a Scorpio rising. Scorpio risings are known for transformation. So transformation, you have tons of activity in your Scorpio part of your chart. So reinventing myself was nothing new to me, but I had a line of sight that even through this darkness and even through these challenges, I was going to make it on the other side. So here I am in a completely different home. I'm single. My kids are living with me now. I could not see that back then. I could not see that until she shed this, I call it illumination. She illuminated for me what was possible. And we were in the same container together. My vision was so crystal clear. And every day I got up, living that vision out as if it was already in place.
Mm. So when you do birth chart readings, so you talked about using the birth chart as a strategic asset, right,
Yep.
for folks. Do you mind if we like kind of dig in a little bit today and give a preview?
Sure.
Because honestly, the first time I had a birth chart reading, I didn't know what a birth chart was. I didn't know, other than maybe looking at my horoscope, I didn't know a ton about astrology.
Mm-hmm.
And just really over the last couple years is when I've started diving into it, I wouldn't say diving into it, not to the point that where you are, but at least like knowing more about it, right? Like being curious about it. And I really want the listeners to see how, especially for someone that might be in a space of not knowing, right? Kind of being on the fence, feeling unfulfilled. A lot of my clients, when they're in burnout, that's how they feel. So can we do an example using my chart? Do you mind?
Sure, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
So every astrologer has their own, and I call myself an astrologer. I'm still trying to figure out what I am, like a title wise. It's like I have a hard time coming up with a title. I actually, if you don't mind me digressing a second, I was toying with this cosmic mastery advisor title or mindset and cosmic mastery advisor title. I don't know. But I have coaching, I have strategy, I have consulting, I have astrology, I have a lot of different skills that I apply to this process. So if you went to someone else, like if you went to Susan, who taught me how to read my chart, but I also have gone through a certification program. So you will see that everybody has their own different style and their own way of doing it. So I've refined mine over the years. And it does start with where your planets are placed. There are 12 zodiac signs in a zodiac wheel, and they all kind of are spread out along the zodiac wheel. And I like to describe them as actors in a play. So depending on where they are in your birth chart says a lot about who you are and how you express yourself. So I'm a little distracted because this cat is climbing all over the computer and all over my my notes. So so if I get like a little distracted, just know I'm just trying to push her off or get her off my notes. But so the first thing I do look at is where are the players? Where are the players in the birth chart? And how are they expressing themselves? And how well do they express themselves? Because depending on where they are, they could be in a really good position. Like, let's just say it's a singer, an actor who can also sing, and they're on the stage and they could do both, right? But then if you're expected to do both, but you're in a place where you can't, that means the planet isn't expressing itself naturally that way and may need a little help. So that's the first thing I do is like, where are they and how well are they expressing themselves? So for you, you have some pretty neat placements. First of all, I said your ascendant. So the sun and the moon and the rising sign of the ascendant are like the core of who you are. They're your personality, they're how you express yourself emotionally, and they're how each of them is. So your sun is your personality, your vitality, your moon is how you express yourself emotionally, and your rising sign is how other people see you, right? So those are the first three. So when I look at you, your sun is Scorpio. So that I don't see you as a Scorpio, and I knew that. I didn't think you were until I saw your chart. I see you as a Capricorn, which is your rising. So I give people like a sense of what that means, right? So you're very passionate, your sun, you're very passionate, you're very intense. You are a transformational queen, right? Because that's your sun, and that's what gives you vitality, right? And it's also in an area in your chart that speaks to career. So that is how you find your joy. So if you talk about fulfillment, it's not the sun sign in totality. It's the sun has a placement for it, but there are so many other things that are layered on it. But your sun, where it is, says a lot about what fulfills you and is part of your career because of where it's at.
Listen, I was so mind blown the first time that I heard this. I just was, because I'm like, it spoke to who I am.
And so, and that's what I find with clients is they kind of know, but they don't know. It's sort of like back there. I find myself validating a lot and illuminating a lot versus telling clients something that they didn't already know. I find that I give them permission to express themselves in a certain way that is in their chart that maybe they resisted. Well, let me finish your placements and then I'm going to go around. I'm going to keep going with that. So the moon, your moon is, I think I talked about your moon before, is your quest when we were preparing for this. Your moon is in an area in your chart where you have a quest for knowledge and you want it and teaching. So it's in this place where you love to learn, but you love to teach what you learn as well. And you're this never-ending learner. It's like you're a lifelong learner, right? Does that speak to you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And then your rising sign or your ascendant is Capricorn. Okay, and that's how I see you. Capricorns are very hardworking. They're very diligent. They're very goal-oriented. They persevere. They're no matter what. And you have the planet Mars in your ascendant, rising sign, which speaks to action and bravery. So, Mars is considered very well placed in your rising sign of Capricorn. So use it to your advantage. Absolutely use it to your advantage. So those are like the first three things I look at is the sun and the moon and your rising sign. And that's the core of who you are and where they're placed and how well they express themselves. So your Mars is beautifully placed. Your moon is beautifully placed. It's placed in an area in your chart where it will receive the Academy Award. Let me, if I want to go with the acting theme here. So it's like, that's an Academy Award winning placement. And then your Mars is in a, when they have, what do they call them? The runners up, or when you're nominated, it's not like nominated. It's not, so you're still getting the recognition, right? But you haven't won. You haven't won the award, but it's still very strong there. And then there are other planets that are like a Mars, which is like considered a personal planet. Mercury is your planet of communications. That's in a very, very beautifully placed position in your chart too. And that's in your right on your career line. So you're a communicator. You're a communicator. You're a communicator in groups. You're a communicator, and it's next to your sun. So I look at where it is in the chart and whether it complements other actors on the stage or whether it's in some sort of challenging position. And that, to me, when I started to even understand my chart and where the challenging things were, it's not as if I couldn't overcome it. It became the awareness around, okay, this is a challenge for me and I know it. And now I know why it's a challenge for me. I now know why it's a block for me. I now know why I self-sabotage myself. So you're not spinning and thinking, okay, why, and sort of beating yourself up. You, in your career house, you have a beautiful placement that makes you a powerful leader. It's the planet Pluto. So now, me telling you that, how does that make you feel?
Number one, it makes me feel more confident. But it almost makes me like step into this authenticity, right? I've always wanted to be a powerful leader. Being a leader now just looks different than it did when I was in the corporate world.
Yeah. But here's also what I'm going to tell you. It's sitting next to Saturn in the same spot. And you have a fear of failure. You have a fear of failure, and you have a fear of failure in the public eye. So how can you be a powerful leader at the same time having this fear of failure in the public eye? So that tells me you need to work on eradicating that fear because you're holding yourself back from being a powerful leader.
This hits home for me this week. And I shared with you just in like a voice message that the last few weeks for me have been really tough. Be honest, like I've been reevaluating my how confident am I in what I'm doing? Like I'm putting out, content and podcasts, but is it really reaching the folks that I want it to reach? It just all these things in my mind start going. And hearing that from you, it empowers me to get out of my head, which was your exact thing to me earlier today, and to understand it versus looking at it as I'm broken.
Right. Right. So I'm going to give you my philosophical view of the birth chart, and it's not just mine only. It's how I learned it, because this is what really made me passionate about it. You are born with this blueprint. You're born with it. So it's not anything you did that made you this way. You were born with it. It's a blueprint. And so some things could be coming more natural to you and me, and some things could be coming more difficult or more challenging. However, this really outlays for you what your greatest potential is, like your greatest potential. So if you know what your greatest potential is, and you know where the blocks are, or I call them self-sabotaging patterns, or the limitations, you get right. You're as coaches, right? We can get right to the chase with clients. It's like we don't have to spend oodles and oodles and oodles and oodles of time getting underneath things. We can identify it up front, and then we work with our clients on how to transform into the person we're meant to be in this lifetime.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that.
And so you with all your Scorpio placements, and me with my Scorpio rising, that's the work that we're meant to do. Like, so that's another indicator, right? So it's Scorpio rising, and there's other things in another area in my chart that speak to astrology. And it's not it's not like I woke up one day and said I want to be an astrologer, right? Or when I talk to some people and they'll say, when I was younger I used to follow this person. Do you remember this person used to write horoscopes in the newspaper? That wasn't me. I really wasn't into it.
That's what I was going to
Some
ask you. Like
yeah.
20 years ago, would you have thought that this is what you would be doing?
No, not at all. Not at all. And so I even have a hard time calling myself an astrologer. I mean, I've studied it and I'm certified in it, but I have a hard time calling myself an astrologer, because it's so much more than astrology, right? Like I said in the beginning, you can go anywhere and get an astrology reading. You can go online, but you're not going to get like I call it like it's this multi-dimensional experience when somebody looks at your chart and can kind of make sense of it. And I look at it from a very strategic standpoint. I'm very strategic about it, but I'm also very, kind of coachy about it too, right? Because I bring that coaching background. And so like I said, I had my first reading. It blew me away. I was like, how does she know what she knows about me? She doesn't even know me. And I said, when's our next one? Because I just kept wanting to go more and more. And then I was scheduling readings with her every 90 days, because there's really two sides of it. It's understanding your natal placements, your chart, and then it's understanding how to work with the energy that's out there now. So when I mentioned that your birth chart is a blueprint, it's a blueprint of where the planets were at the very moment you were born. And it's sort of embedded in you on a cellular level, right? I'll just kind of put it that way. But the planets are still moving around the sky. They're still moving around, and you're in the membership group, so you're better understanding how to work with it. Where they are now in relation to where they were at the time that you were born, you'll experience certain themes in your life, because it's all energy. It's all energy. So it's like, so I have right now, I've had some movement in the sky affecting my career area in my chart. And I'm going to write a blog about this. I'm going to write a blog, how I became a best-selling author because of astrology. Because I literally looked in my chart the day that I met this woman, agreed to meet this woman. We had a conversation. I got involved in this book project, and the book went on sale just as Mercury, the planet of communications, went into my career house, right? You can't make this up. So it's looking ahead and saying, when's the best time to work on my business? When's the best time to work on myself? When's the best time to focus on my family? You can work with an astrologer, or you can learn this yourself. It's very difficult to learn it yourself because there's so many different nuances to it, but you can actually plan your life in a way that works with the energy versus against it. And I'll give you an example. And I see this all the time. People trying, like coaches or consultants or entrepreneurs trying to launch. And it's like, I'm getting like crickets. Nobody's responding. What's going on, right? And I look at their chart and I see Mercury retrograde, which you're all familiar with Mercury retrograde, in their house of communications. So what does that mean? Not a really good time to communicate. And so the question to me was, well, what do I do about that? I said, it's only 3 weeks. Can you find something else to do other than launch a program? So that's the beauty of it too. And the second thing is, when you're in comparisonitis and you're looking around and you're seeing other people blow it out of the water, right? Or doing really well. And I had this conversation with another client. I said, well, let me see what's going on in your chart. And I look at her chart and I go, well, it was another Mercury example. You have Mercury in the sky in an area of your chart right now where you really need to be focusing on your limiting beliefs and your self-sabotaging patterns and your blocks, right? And then I can tell her what those are based on what's in her chart, not trying to launch something that you're fighting yourself against, because in the back of your mind, you're thinking, what if nobody signs up, right? What if I don't make enough money? So work on that first. Then here's where the energy is going to be. And then guess what? And then in October, November, you're going to have these beautiful transits, these beautiful energies that will have you in a better position to attract money and attract clients. So you give yourself permission to, like, okay, it's okay if I don't do anything for a while. Because that goes against the grain of the way that we were brought up, right? Yeah. You're a Capricorn from rising, right? If you're not working, if you're not doing, you're not productive. Mm-hmm. There are times where we can just be. We could just be.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking back while you're talking to my days in corporate, and first of all, the feeling of just how blessed we are to be able to plan and work with the cosmos. Like I've heard of people, they plan things around their cycle, as a female. Like that is just what it, and they're more productive, they feel better, they're more in flow. Mm-hmm. In the corporate space, couldn't do that, right? Like you were at everyone's beck and call and you were expected to be on at all times. Mm-hmm. Do you ever run across clients that like that's their reality and you're teaching them then how to kind of integrate this into their daily?
Yes. So it's definitely, it requires a look ahead. So everyone has vacation, right? Everyone knows that they need their downtime. So you can plan ahead. There are certain times of the year that I will say, just check out.
Yeah.
And that's your time to take a vacation. There may be times where there's more emphasis put on home and family, and you can plan for it, right? So it's not a surprise, and you can work more effectively with it versus in a reactionary way. How many times have we, and I remember I have twins, they're now almost 21 years old. I was working in New York. I lived 2 hours away from where I worked, and getting the call that your child's sick and you have to come pick them up, right? Those are unexpected things. But if you knew ahead of time that there was going to be a heavy emphasis on home and family, you might want to work if you have the flexibility to plan certain projects at work, or plan certain meetings at work, or plan certain trips, right? Okay, maybe this isn't a good time to go away to a conference. Maybe I'll wait for the one, they're having another one in October versus, August, or right. Most people do plan around if they have kids, they plan around the summer. And you could do that, but maybe not. Maybe your peak is August if it's showing up in your career house, and that's where you're going to get the public recognition. That's where the boss may recognize you more. So it's not necessarily, and I love saying this, but it's not like what we are known to do or what we're supposed to do, right? How does it work for us? And being an advocate for ourselves, even in the workplace. Saying no is okay. Saying no is okay. And I really feel that this gives you permission to say no, because you know that, well, when I met with Barbara, she said that in September, I'm going to want more solitude. I'm going to want more quiet time. So that maybe you let your boss and the people that you work with know, okay, in September, I'm really not going to be at my best. And then we're like, well, what do you do? Well, I study astrology. No, whatever. However you communicate that, right? As opposed to getting blindsided. And this is the way I describe it. You can look at ways to take advantage of opportunities ahead of time, as well as know the landmines in advance. And then you can choose, because it always is a choice, what you want to do with that information. Because the other thing that I get questions about is it fortune telling? I can't tell people exactly what's going to happen. I can tell them generally where the energy will be and some of the possibilities. I mean, you hear me on the membership group. I can give people examples. I can say, well, if these combinations are happening, it may be that you have some issue with your child in school, right? Or whatever it could be. I'm not going to tell you that's what's going to happen. I'm not going to tell you that you have to stop your life. Those are all your choices. But at least you have visibility.
Yes. Yeah, it is such, it just opens this whole other door, right, to what we're capable of. And it might sound silly, right? But to be able to leverage the information that you give us, right, and that you're teaching us is truly, it's so life-giving. And it's funny because I pay attention to things, right, that you're saying. And when I get in my head, for my last 3 weeks, right, I didn't pay attention to last Thursdays. And I probably, I know I should have. I can always go back to it. But if those moments happen and I go back to that and listen to what you're saying, it's almost spot on for what I experienced. And it's not because I'm you know what I mean? It's not like I'm creating my own reality. I didn't know that's what it was going to be. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And just thank you for really bringing this perspective for folks and allowing them to see what they can co-create.
Yeah. And that's the name of our group, Co-Create.
Yeah.
And so, we have one member in the group who's going through a pretty difficult divorce. And the court date kept getting postponed and postponed and postponed. Her and I have had, we did a deep dive reading, and then we do updates. And I knew, I was just like, be patient. And she was very much affected by the Mercury retrograde, where it was literally, it was in a spot in her chart around shared resources, and which would totally address the divorce. And I said, it's gonna lift. It's in a stalemate right now because of Mercury retrograde. And I keep saying Mercury retrograde because that's the easiest example to use for people. But I could talk about Venus retrograde too, but I won't. And so she actually came in to the group. I don't know if you saw her post, and she said, it's mind blowing, Barbara, because this is what you told me. You told me to just be patient. And so I focused on myself, and I stayed grounded, and I did my meditations, and I, did my workouts, and I ate well, and I took care of myself. And lo and behold, she said, I got the email today. And so, because I can see, did I know an email was going to come from her attorney? No, I didn't know that. All I can tell her was it's on hold right now because of the influence of Mercury retrograde, where it is in your chart. But I can't say like, oh, you're going to win the case tomorrow. I can tell her if it's favorable or not. And I did tell her, I said, if you have your case, if your case is seen in front of a court in Libra season, I said, you got it made, because the way her chart was set up in Libra, I said, so just pray that when the sun moves into Libra, which is Saturday, for the next month, you have a court date, then your probability is going to be good.
So let's talk about this book.
Yes. Okay. Well,
I'm so excited for you to chat about this.
That was, I don't want to call it a fluke, but it was not on my radar screen. I thought it is in my chart to be a publishing, right? I'm a ninth house. The ninth house is publishing too. So if you have dreams of writing a book, and you can be a very creative writer. I did pick that up in your chart too. So you have the ability to be a creative writer.
That's good to know, because I would love to write a book, but I always, in my head's always telling me that I'm not capable of it. So
yes, you can. Yes, you can. And you have your moon in the ninth house, which I told you. So put that on your wish list. And I could probably even get more specific to you when it would be a good time.
Yeah.
Because on my birthday last year, I went into I'll call it it's called a perfection year, but it's an energetic year that was focused on what's considered ninth house topics, which is publishing, teaching, spirituality. And I didn't really pay attention to it. I really didn't. But when I knew other things were about to happen, career related, I was introduced to a woman, and I was like, I don't know if I have time for this. I don't know if I want to make another investment, right? All these questions. And then I looked at my chart and I go, oh no, this is a very important connection for me, because I knew exactly what was happening. I took the call. It was a yes. And so I ended up, it's an anthology. It's called, I got it in the back here. Hold on. It's called How to Break the Glass Ceiling and Still Keep It Nice. So it's an anthology. It's 10 women. They were all corporate. They all have all different backgrounds. And we all told our story and gave some wisdom around how to break the glass ceiling and still keep it nice, right? So I'll finish with the astrology piece because it is fascinating. So that happened. That was a big thing. When Mars, the planet of action, moved into my publishing house in my chart, it was ready. Like it was fine. It was like done, and I was proofing it. And then when Mars went into my career house, when Venus went into my career house, and on the day that Mercury went into the career house, we launched it. And within that week, it became a best-selling Amazon best-selling book. So that whole experience, it was totally aligned to publishing. And then I remembered, I'm like, wait, what year am I in? Oh, I'm in a ninth house year. And I said, this was the year that that was conducive for me publishing a book. So I break this down so simply in this chapter. It's a chapter, it's about 20 some odd pages. And I'll give you the link because I have a free download for any of your listeners who want to download a free copy of
Oh,
my
that'll
chapter.
be awesome. Cool.
Yeah. Or if you want to buy the whole book, you can buy the whole book. But if you just want to read my chapter. So I spell it out really clearly. I tell my story and I explain how you can work with astrology to co-create your life. And I gave a few examples of women that I've worked with. There are 3 different examples. One was a woman who, corporate woman, and was building a business. And I gave her the confidence, knowing where Mercury, the planet of communications, was in her chart, that she ran with it in her business. And it was a very important time in her career. I knew from an astrological standpoint. So there's 3 examples in there that you can check out. But I didn't think I was a writer either. But when you have a subject that you're so passionate about, that you enjoy talking about, that you just, when they say, what can you talk about for 10 minutes and not even think about it? I don't even know how long we're talking now. It's probably 2 hours. It feels like 5 minutes, but I know it's longer than that. You can just say what, and it came with such ease. Writing this chapter came with such ease. And I didn't think I was a writer either. I have a hard time writing emails, quite frankly. But I ended up, it was very, they offered editing. There really wasn't a lot to edit. It was the easiest project I ever had professionally. It really was easy. And I met these fabulous women that I never would have met. I met these 9 other authors. We are all connected. 2 of them are clients of mine now. And it's just, yeah, it was such a fabulous experience just to go through. I went to Orlando. We did an in-person book launch. Here I am, just like, I'm at the table and there's people taking pictures and wanting my autograph, right? They want me to sign. I was like, I feel like a celebrity for this book that was published. It's published in Barnes and Noble and other places, but it was truly I really felt a career milestone for me. Totally unplanned, but I harnessed the energy rather than saying no. I knew it was the time to do it, and I did it. So
I've loved watching that unfold. Oh man. And it is. I will link the freebie for your chapter in the show notes for everyone listening. And then I'll also link the book. So feel free to go on and get that book, especially if you are someone that loves this podcast. You're going to love this book. Hearing the stories of all of these women will be so inspiring for you.
I know, because I know you went through the other chapters too, because you had told me that there were some things that really
Oh yeah,
resonated with you.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So this is my passion and purpose. My passion and purpose is really educating and empowering people to understand this, And I mean, if you go to my website, my statement is, I help women leaders find their path to purpose and prosperity so that they can live life on their terms, and make the greatest impact. I'm just paraphrasing, but this is such an underutilized, I call it an underutilized asset. And I can speak to the corporate women. I'm also emotional intelligence certified, right? I've done all of those assessments. I've used them in my coaching practice, and I've had them on myself. If think of it as another assessment to better understand who you are, but then take it a level further and say, how can I now align with not only what I'm meant to do and who I'm meant to become, but really the cycles and the timing around it, and not forcing things when they shouldn't be forced, and allowing yourself to live with more flow and more ease and more joy, as opposed to the struggle, right? The struggle and the hustle and the grind.
Yeah. Yeah. So Barbara, if you had to give one piece of advice to our listeners today, what would it be?
Oh, I think it goes back to what we said in the very beginning, and it's about just trusting and trusting your inner knowing, because like I said, most of the women that come to me, it's almost like a validation point, and you already know, you already have the answers inside of you. And I do have a link too on my website. I did a talk, and there's a little 5-minute clip on it. I have a whole talk on it. It's called Come Home to the Power Within You. You have the answers within you. And so it could be as simple as finding the right resource to help you identify those answers within you. How many times I've had people come to me and tell me or ask me where should I go? What should I do? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you that. I can give you some guidance, but you have the answers within you. So just trust yourself. Just trust it.
Mm.
And if I can add one more thing, and it's your unique journey. What journey you went on, what journey I went on, what journey, your sister went on or is on, we're totally different. And just because one person took a certain path in a certain way does not dictate the way your journey is meant to go.
Mm. So I know that there's someone listening to this that feels out of alignment,
Mm-hmm.
that feels unfulfilled, yet that they are looking to others for validation on what their next move is. And I'm here to tell you, listen to what Barbara just said. Trusting yourself is one of the biggest gifts that you will ever give yourself, because it is going to open so many doors and truly open your eyes to being authentically you and not what the world is telling you you should be.
So I already demonstrated that for you, Amanda, today.
I know.
I gave you so many little lovely
You
tidbits
did.
about yourself so that you don't hold yourself back.
I know. I
From
know.
where you're, yeah.
This is the medicine that I needed today. And I wish you guys could see me. I'm holding my highlighter because I got out my chart. As she was talking, I'm sitting here highlighting things, and I'm really going to let this sink in, but this is exactly what I needed. And I'm sure that I'm probably not the first person to tell you that at the end of a reading.
No, this is what I needed. This is exactly what I needed. And it's beautifully, it's beautiful to see them. I see transformation almost in the next interaction with them, whether it's social media. Like I can see there are people in our membership group that when they first came to me, they were totally different people. I can name one. I won't name her on here because she might listen. Totally night and day, because we went through this process. And then and you know what I say in the group, I say, just give it time and trust. And I'm amazed by what I see. So she posted something today, which I haven't responded to, but absolutely. Yeah. It's almost like I call it a gift. And if you read my chapter, I say that it's a gift. Understanding your chart is a gift that you choose to open. So, yeah.
Yeah. I remember thinking, like, why did it take me because I think when I got my first birth chart reading, it was like, I was 39. Why did it take me 39 years to hear this, right? To understand it. And
I'll tell you why.
Why?
Because you were meant to be on the journey that you were on.
Yeah.
Because I even say it in my book. It took me 50 years to realize that I had the answers within ourselves, because you wouldn't be the gift to other women if you didn't go through with what you went through. Think about it, because you and I, our life experience, our career experience is an inspiration to other women who are having the same considerations that we had back then.
Yes.
So you had to acquire all that wisdom and all that courage and all that bravery and all that experience. So it's okay. I tell you, it's okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let our listeners know where they can find you.
Sure. Okay. The easiest place to go first is my website, which is Barbara, Barbara, C as in cat, Alexander.com. There were too many Barbara Alexanders out there, so I had to put my maiden initial in there. So BarbaraCAlexander.com. That's my website. There's a ton of stuff that you can find out about me there. I have a LinkedIn profile for those of you who are on LinkedIn. You can actually even see my very extensive corporate background. So I know what it's like to be in your shoes, and that's Barbara C. Alexander, LinkedIn, Barbara C. Alexander, something like that. And I think Amanda's going to post the link to the download because you won't find it on my website because it's only a gift that I'm
Yay,
giving.
thank you so much for that.
Yeah, so you'll get the gift. And yeah, I mean, those are really the main places. I have an Instagram if you want to start learning more about astrology. My Instagram account is Aligning with Astrology. And those are really the three places to find me.
Awesome. So I am going to drop all of Barbara's links in the show notes. Please take advantage of getting her chapter and reading it, learning more about her journey. And if it resonates with you, click the link, purchase the book. You might want to purchase a couple actually and gift them to folks as we get into the holidays, maybe a coworker or a friend that you think it might resonate with as well. So Barbara, thank you, truly. This has been amazing. And I can't wait to hear what the listeners have to say. So if you guys have any comments, you can drop them. If you're on Spotify, you can drop them right with the podcast. You can leave a comment on any of the other platforms or send Barbara or myself an email and we would be glad to get back to you.
Yep. Thank you, Amanda.
Again,
this was so much fun. And it, like I said, your Capricorn rising and my Cancer are pretty compatible. So
I know.
Aside from
the
our
last
Scorpio
podcast,
connections,
I know it.
Yeah. I know. I think we're going to do more.
Yes, absolutely. So, are you ready to start your own corporate detox journey? Well, if you are, make sure that you check out amandamcwhorter.net for different ways to work with me, as well as some freebies that could help you get started. If you're on social media, follow me at Amanda K. McWhorter on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.